Globally, water consumption is a serious problem because as the world gets increasingly crowded, we're also getting increasingly thirsty. Many analysts predict that the wars of the next few decades could be fought over access to water.
In Steger's book, Globalization, a very short introduction, he mentions that the Industrial Revolution has caused many global ecological problems, including resource and food shortages, reduced biodiversity, pollutions, and climate change. These problems are the result of aggregated human action and that they required a coordinated response. Steger also mentions that the global economic order emerged after World War II, when the Bretton Woods Conference laid foundations for the IMF, World Bank, and WTO. In the 1980s, neoliberalism liberalized financial transactions. However, this unstable growth led to the Great Financial Crash, where the banks traded toxic assets without regulations. However, the guest lecture on global finance explained some global economic aspects, how and why the market crashed, and who were all involved in the scheme. And lastly, how governments and authorities are trying to regulate the market to avoid crashes from happening in the further future. Globally, mankind faces a few ecological challenges, such as global warming and pollution. And because pollution is happening on a global scale, the consequences are also very global. This was made very clear in the guest lecture of climate change.
In India, water is sacred. Its rivers are revered as holy, bestowing blessings. But now they're polluted. Wells are running dry. Conflicts are breaking out. The battle for water is rocking this vast country.
Some residents are having to adapt due to Jackson's water emergency. Broad Street Bakery is serving on paper plates, and they're also shipping in water or sanitizing what water is coming through the tap. The restaurant reopened Sunday after closing because of the lack of water.
People have human rights, and when natural disasters that are made stronger by mankind's pollution take those rights away, people start looking for other options. This usually ends up in fleeing their homeland and becoming climate refugees. This was made very clear in the guest lecture of climate refugees. The guest lecture on migration patterns revealed that people did not only migrate because of climate change, but that there were several other factors why they would choose to migrate. And the best part was, this guest lecture came with conclusions that would sound very, very practical. But with migration comes the issue, human trafficking. And the guest lecture on human trafficking made it very clear what human trafficking was, how Holland is dealing with it, and that sometimes people have no choice but to choose that way of life. And that law doesn't always look at these people as victims.
We want full decriminalization and labor rights as workers. I'm just one sex worker on the stage today, but I'm bringing a message from all over the world.
Another way to help migrants or people with less resort was presented into the guest lecture, Making Markets for the Poor. The guest lecture showed that moving more people to the middle class helps economies more than just letting people find solutions out for themselves.
How can we connect Chakanteki and Shukanteki? Have a look. What is this? If you just know that if you look at the bridge from the top, you get the top. If you look from the side, you get the side. But if you combine the two, you get a picture that makes it very clear that reality in diverse groups needs to combine opposites into a higher reality.
You can see here that since the mid-20th century, the planet's seen nearly 180 conflicts connected to water resources. These include both small and large-scale clashes, a lot of them in the Mideast and Africa. Well, you might be surprised to hear that it's water rather than oil there that could be what's fought over in the coming years.
The world doesn't have an international police. This statement was made very clear in a guest lecture of Justice and Peace. But it does have an international criminal court to sentence international criminals that are situated in countries that are not capable of giving those criminals a fair trial. This is done to discourage criminal activity in conflicts The rise of organizations such as the United Nations has strengthened the nation state, according to globalization skeptics. Steger mentions, however, national governments still hold a significant power. There has also been a rise of number of supra-territorial institutions operating from a local level all the way to the global level. Let mayors rule the world. This is the key statement that guest lecture of global government revealed. This guest lecture illustrated that mayors tend to be more practical when solving problems when compared to the politicians, and that cities are becoming even more important for the world because of their economical growth, and they keep on expanding.
Water privatization in France, because of the multinationals that are so powerful there and because of their long history there, is so ingrained that even the president of France wasn't able to stop it.
Uruguay se privatizó el servicio de distribución de agua potable. A poco de haberse establecido, los precios se elevaron exorbitantemente.
Basically, the world got flat right around the year 2000 when several forces converged. The informing helped the outsourcing helped the offshoring helped the uploading, and they all started to meld together into what I would call a platform.
So how did Flint's water supply become contaminated?
To save money, the city stopped pumping water from Detroit and started pumping it from the Flint River. The problem is it's a lot more corrosive, damaging Flint's aging pipes and leaching lead into its water supply.
Just as many other global challenges, corruption is a global issue. And the guest lecture, Global Corruption, showed not only how much money was being paid to global bribery, but also how much it damages economy. It also showed that nations and institutions are making laws to fight corruption as well as trying to discourage it.
Beside everything else, look at the data. The challenge of extreme poverty have been greatly reduced, and it's for the first time in history within our power to end it for good. The challenge of population growth is in fact already being solved. The number of children have stopped growing. And for the challenge of climate change, we can still avoid the worst.
The guest lecture of international corporations showed that even with all the global challenges we face today, there is still hope, especially when we look back how far we came with global equality and the amount of damage that war have caused. Things are starting to get better according to the global poverty scale.
Water credit.
So we knew that women in India, for instance, were going and paying 125% interest on loans to loan sharks so they could build a toilet. So we said, let's take microfinance and layer it in here and give people access to affordable loans so they can buy that toilet, so they can get that water connection.
Depending on where you are, that could mean a faucet in your own home.
This mind map helps clear the structure of the presentation and shows how the global water crisis connects all 3 chapters of Steger's book. I avoided trying to put more links between the subjects to avoid more confusion. I hope this was a clear and informative presentation, and thank you for watching.